Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Welcome, 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 everyone. Feeling kind of lonely right now. I know this isn't the normal time of day that I would normally do a normal live stream. I'm super tired and I want to be done earlier. Not only that, there's a lot going on this evening because there's the convention. So some of our faves are going to be covering that. And then there's Left Past 10 with the letter hack, and Matt Binder will be on that at 10. So really, this is the best time. But I know the Serfs is still on, and he takes a lot of my audience. There's a lot of crossover there. I get it. And I have a little bit of a beef with him. Yeah, I do. Totally serious. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's just a little fun. But there is a lot to get to today that I want to get to, big flood in Toronto and the power going out and all the implications of that. And, the conservatives crying that the left is the mean ones because we've occasionally made a joke at their expense. But, whenever they actually threaten bodily harm towards us, we're just supposed to take it, or we're whiny snowflakes. So I'm going to be talking about that, and also Doug Ford, talking a lot about Doug Ford. Unlike what the Serfs may think. It's all good fun. I'd like to say thank you, Monope, for coming into the Sandbox so far. I think you're the only person watching, and that might not even be the case right now. I think I might be the only person watching right now. This was my nightmare for my first live stream, that I would be the only audience member, and it's happening now. I'm sure it'll pick up. Is this... Wait a sec. Yeah, no, it's... Let's go to the... Yeah, okay, sorry. The screen here wasn't showing it live, which was really annoying. The joys of a live streaming. Here we go. Always wondering, it's like, are you hearing me properly? I did one of those things today, and it's like, I've been doing content creating for quite some time now. I'm like a professional, and I did that thing today because earlier today I had an interview with MP Mike Morris. He is the one of two sitting Green MPs in the federal parliament, and he's been on my show before, and I brought him back on to talk about the Canada Disability benefit. And so when I do an interview like that, it'll be up later this week, I will I do like a intro and an outro for it. And this time I'm like, I'm just going to ad-lib it. I know normally when I do this sort of thing, I like to script it, but this time I'm just going to ad-lib it. And I did that thing where I'm like, wow, that was an amazing take. Let me look. Oh, the mic was muted. Okay. Still, after all this time, it's like, I should have looked at that first. Part of it is when I was doing the interview, I'm using a different OBS scene layout, and I forgot to change. Yeah, anyway, neither here nor there. That video will be out later this week. I just need to edit it to make it look pretty, and then I'll be premiering it probably Friday around this time, because I won't be around in the evening to premiere it, so I'll have to premiere it earlier if I want to be in the chat with everyone. Hello, Carrie. Nice to see you in the sandbox. I'm just kind of trying to kill some time before we get a few more viewers before I get into like the really interesting, fun news of the day, because there's a lot to go over. Uh, really, it's just three main topics, but Doug Ford, there's always more than one thing to say about Doug Ford. And even when I'm talking about the flooding in Toronto, it's a big picture thing. It's not just about the floods, it's about everything else that led to the floods. But we'll get to that. We will get to that. Uh, just, yeah, I know this is early. And I know a lot of my audience is probably watching the Serfs right now. But I'm so tired because I didn't sleep well last night because stressed about doing the interview with Mike Morris earlier. And so I woke up at 6:30 for no real reason. And I couldn't get back to sleep because then I just got paranoid my alarm wouldn't go off for some reason. So I'm super tired. Super tired. Aw, it's very nice of you to say, Carrie. It's always interesting when I see your pretty face. Why, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of doing this live stream yesterday, but then I was like, you know what? I'm doing that interview earlier today. So if I do a live stream later in the day, then that way I only have to do my makeup once, as opposed to having to do it yesterday and today. Oh. And I'm going to share a little bit more information about that book that I'm currently writing. I will share the well, I can put it on screen now as a way of like showing people. There we go. There's that. Then I do this. So this is the thing that I'm involved with. It's Inkfort Press. So this is the thing I've been talking about with the book that I'm writing that I can't tell you guys about, but I can tell you about like the overall thing, the derby. It's a writing derby. So 50 book covers with fake names, authors, and fake titles and stuff, and then you select one, and then you have to write the book for a minimum 10,000 words, no maximum. And so I am taking part of it this year, and there's going to be a part coming up where all of you lovely people could potentially participate. Yes, because let's see if I can make this a bit bigger for you to see. They are going to want to have people be like beta readers and ARC readers, and then you can say like which kind of book you would be interested in beta and ARC reading. And it helps. Like I can't tell you, of course I can't tell you which book is mine. So you would just go in, but if you read any of them, you're helping out, because the more eyeballs on any of these books, the better. I'm getting really distracted because my cat is just suddenly acting really weird over there. Oh, okay, he just has his little pouch. So the more people who read beta books, it just helps because it gives the authors feedback and that sort of thing. So you can, sign up for it here. Just putting your email and then saying like which ones of these that you would be interested in. And so a beta reader is like, here's the first draft of the book, and you give their feedback. It's like, well, this made sense. This didn't make sense. I like this. Be constructive with your feedback so that they can do that. And then the ARC readers, it's more like you missed a period here. That sounds weird. You missed a comma. Let's put that way. You missed a comma, or this should have been capitalized, or this word isn't the word that it's R-A-R-E instead of O-U-R that you meant to put here. That sort of thing. And so all of you can actually get involved with this thingy of mine. And I forgot to put this in the description box already, so I will do that afterwards. But yeah, it is like a legit real thing that I am participating in with this publishing derby. So I'm so looking forward to when this is over and I can tell you guys all about the book and have a live stream where all I'm doing is talking about that book. It'll be my first 5-hour live stream. Oh, we got some more people popping in the sandbox. We also have Crotchety and Marty. Hello. We've got stuff to go over. And I'm super tired, so who knows what kind of mood I'm going to be in through this. But why don't we get started with the flooding in Toronto? There's a lot of it. And, you know, again, big picture, it's not just that there were floods, but it's everything that kind of led to the floods and what the floods mean and all that sort of stuff. So let me do this. So this person saying, Laura here saying, and Ford, my cat's just made something crash. So let's start this over. Laura here is saying, and Ford wants to build a mega spa, casino, underwater parking garage at Ontario Place, Highway 413, and destroy the green belt when climate change mitigation should be his priority. I don't blame him for today's flood. I blame him for what he's doing to make them worse. And yes, he is moving the Science Center, a heritage landmark here in Ontario. And he's moving it to here that you see on your screen. There's supposed to be underground parking where this is going up. The new spa, the luxury spa, it's going up, and that's Lakeshore Boulevard there. So just toss in some underground parking. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? More, this is Lakeshore Boulevard. Again, just this is where that luxury spa is moving to. I just want to say to people, when you see this, do not drive in it. Never. If you can avoid it, like, unfortunately, I think a lot of these people didn't see it ahead of time because they were just stuck in the traffic. But if you're ever approaching a road that has water over it and you can't see the bottom, do not drive on it. Unless you're willing to have somebody go ahead of you, because in that way, if there's a massive sinkhole, they'll go in it and you'll know to stop. Part of it is too, you have no idea how deep that water is. So a lot of people, when they see, especially under bridges, they'll see water, but they won't think it's all that bad and they'll go through it only to find out the water's like 5 feet deep and your car gets stuck and you have to get rescued from your car and things of that sort. So just like kind of as a PSA, never drive in this if you can avoid it. But like I said, I think a lot of these people were already on the road before they even saw that. And here is the Don Valley Parkway. Right there. Yeah, that was some great planning. Well, at the time, like you can see here in the picture too, it's actually bigger this way. In the background here, you can see the cars are pretty submerged. Like there's a van it's up to the hood. Because again, it's hard to tell how deep this water is when you're just approaching it. But the person just saying, you know, this picture is in essence the state of Toronto, a once world-class city, clunky, sprawling 500 square feet condo developments at 2,300 units per month, because Toronto, very expensive city. An artery highway built next to a river in a floodplain, longest commute in North America, among the highest costing in the world, vast subgrade infrastructure in need of repair and replacement, and sections at 60 to 100 years old, and no notable transportation infrastructure improvement since the 80s. Yeah. And then just other cities, you know, high-speed rails, better roads, more infrastructure. This is what happens when the province just gets neglectful, undoing a lot of the things, and municipalities put it off because, oh no, the money. It would cost a lot of money to make a new road or a subway or something of that sort. This is what happens when you just neglect it. And we'll get into roughly how much this is potentially going to be costing people and, well, people, the province, the city in just a moment. But we, as people who live in cities, municipalities, provincial governments, federal governments, climate change is here. It's here. And we need to start adapting our infrastructure, start changing it so that things like this don't happen. Because I haven't heard of anyone dying because of these floods, but there's going to be a lot of people that have lost a lot. Just here, water safety, haha. Yeah, you're going to work, take your life jacket with you. But let's see. Let's just go back to this one for a moment. So if you see water like this, especially when you see it on city roads and in towns and stuff like that, just think of all the people who have basement apartments. What do you think would happen to those apartments? And I remember when there was some severe flooding in New York and some people did pass away, a lot of the times it's because they get trapped in their basement apartments. And even if you don't get trapped, even if it only goes up a certain amount, chances are you're going to lose a lot. And the people who live in basement apartments are usually renters who can't afford much. It's people on the, you know, as I always say, people with the least suffer the most. And so people who are struggling with rent the most that end up in basement apartments, you know, a flood like this hits town, you lose everything, everything. And sometimes like even your life. But here we go. Not a disaster movie, says Jennifer. This is Union Station. Ah, that was loud. Wow. Union Station right there. Let's maybe mute that. There we go. Yeah, that would be a very pretty fountain if it wasn't a fountain, you know? Like if it was a fountain. It'd be a very pretty fountain to just kind of have that, but instead it's like the stairs on Union Station in Toronto, which is like the transportation hub. It's where the train comes in and stuff. That's that is potentially very dangerous. Got another view of it, Union Station. It would be a very pretty fountain, but here, you know, and for people who live with disabilities and have mobility issues and stuff, this type of thing can strand you in different places. Like if this shuts down escalator, stairs, and elevators and stuff because the water in the systems, then wherever you are, you're stranded because you can't go up and down these stairs. And just people who have canes and stuff makes it a lot more dangerous and slippery for them to walk on. But like here's one of the main hubs in Toronto. Lots of money has gone into Union Station to modernize it. And this is what you get. An unintentional, very pretty waterfall. Yeah, just another picture of it flooded. So as you can see, these escalators are not running right now because there's water. Water and electricity don't work. I would never want to be in a subway when floods are hitting. Like they have pumping stations and stuff to make sure they don't flood, but I saw the nightmare scenarios that were happening in like China the one time where one of those systems failed and the subway systems were flooding and people were up to their necks and oh my God. Again, don't drive in this. Don't go in subways if you can at all prevent yourself from doing that. No matter how safe they say, just don't. For your own well-being, don't. And just more of the Don River against the Don Valley Parkway. Yeah, that's Canada's infrastructure there for you. And instead what they do is they shut down the Science Center because of a few roof panels needing replacement, as opposed to, you know, making sure that we have better waterways and floodplains and ways to divert the water. Yeah, and you see people here, again, they're going under the bridge. Gets a lot deeper under there. It's not safe. And the fact that they didn't like stop people from doing that. Like as long as there's a car going in front of you, you'll know if there's a pothole, at least, or if there's like a sinkhole that you would sink into. But then this is what happens. If you can't tell how deep it is, your car gets stuck, you get stuck, and you don't want to be in floodwater. You just don't want to be in floodwater because it's not clean. It's tons of chemicals. Sewers can get backed up, so you have biological material. It is very dangerous to be in floodwater. I've seen pictures and videos of people like playing in floodwater before because it was like, ooh, this novelty. There's like water in our streets. And we can, no, don't, don't. It's very dangerous to be in for more than one reason. And let's see, if I go to this one, this is a prime reason why you should never walk around in floodwater unless you have a stick in front of you. Where's that water coming up from? A manhole. You know, those big heavy manholes. Sometimes the floods can get so powerful, it removes the lid. And if you're walking around in these floods and you can't see if one is missing right in front of you, that is nightmare fuel right there. You do not want to step into one of those that might be uncovered when there's a flood like that, because there'd be currents and stuff too. You would never get back out, which is just, again, horrifying to think of. So if you need to walk around in a flood, like even if it looks like it's just, you know, that deep, but you can't see the bottom, have a stick with you, like a walking stick, a cane or something, just to poke in front of you so that you can actually see, you know, or know if there's suddenly an opening in front of you that you aren't aware of. Because sometimes you see the whirlpools going into drains and stuff, so that gives you an indication, okay, there's an opening here. But if it's equally flooded underneath, you're not going to get that. So again, just be really, really careful with this sort of thing. Let's get to City Hall. Yeah, that's it's raining inside of the City Hall of Toronto. And again, they're shutting down the Science Center because a few roof panels needed to be replaced by the winter for the snow that might be happening. Not that there might be much snow anymore with climate change. But they decided to shut down the Science Center as opposed to repairing that. So I think we need to shut down Toronto City Hall. If we're going to go by that standard, we just need to shut it all down because, yeah, as somebody is saying, we've got $1 billion+ police force, but a city that uses waste bins to catch leaks. Remember, our aged infrastructure buckles under weather events due to dudes from Burlington make six figures and harass cyclists in park. And yes, there is Toronto's budget for their police is $1.198 billion. And they're using recycling bins so that the carpet doesn't get soggy. I think that money could be spent better than with the police who like to harass cyclists, like to harass unhoused people. You know, we don't need that much money in a police force, especially when there's things like this that obviously should be looked after. And just show that one. And then this is the other problem that happens when you have these sorts of floods is power outages. So this is Lorenda. So the power is out at the CBC newsroom. Never in all my years working here has this ever happened. And of course, when the power goes out, there's just a whole litany of problems. Especially, again, if you live with disabilities and you rely on an elevator, then you're trapped either in your apartment or on the floor you happen to be on. If you're living with poverty and the power goes out for long enough, everything in your fridge will spoil. Then it'll have to be replaced. But how are you supposed to do that if you're living with poverty? Like, these are the things that a lot of people don't tend to think of in these sorts of disasters, is how different kinds of people suffer differently, depending on how much money you have, if you have a disability and stuff. Because if it's hard for an able-bodied person to get around in these flood situations, if you have mobility restrictions, so much harder. So much harder. And again, it's the people with the least who suffer the most. And a lot of this could be prevented with better urban planning. Or do you know what else really helps? There's these things in Ontario called wetlands. Got its name because they're wet and it's on land and they're called wetlands. And a lot of those areas just tend to soak up all that water and make it so that cities aren't flooded. But you know what happens when you start cutting these wetland areas, if you want to pave over them for a new highway and stuff? Ontario cuts conservation authorities funding for flood programs. Ontario seeing more intense, more frequent flooding events in recent years. This article is from April 21st, 2019. Pretty much as soon as Doug Ford got into office, one of the cuts that he was making is to the conservation authorities for flooding programs, you know. Ontario conservation authorities say the provincial government has cut their funding for flood management programs in half. Conservation Ontario, which represents the province's 36 conservation authorities, said impacts of the cuts will be felt immediate, particularly in small and more rural areas. Cutting natural hazard funding in particular is problematic right now in light of the fact that, like everywhere else, Ontario's experienced stronger and more frequent flood events as a result of climate change impacts, General Manager Kim said in a statement. Using a watershed-based approach, conservation authorities deliver effective and cost-effective, efficient flood management programs across the province, partnering for many years with the province, municipalities, and others. Ontario has given $7.4 million to conservation authorities for that work, but they say that has now been reduced by 50%. And then we see the consequences of it. And instead of doing something like funding these conservation authorities, we have a provincial government that's looking to pave over part of the Greenbelt, part of the area that would help with this flooding. So instead of making infrastructure to withstand this, the provincial government is actively making infrastructure that will exacerbate this. Because would this flood have happened without climate change? Maybe, maybe not. It's just they become more frequent and more severe with climate change. And they become more severe with poor management of wetlands, of conservation lands, of poor city planning. When you have so much concrete and it funnels water into different areas, there's nowhere for it to just be absorbed into the ground anymore. And then it just goes down streets and into people's apartments. But instead of spending money on that, something that the Doug Ford government will spend money on is throwaway costs. Doug Ford ordered Highway 413 signs, then replace them weeks later. So that's the Highway 413 that's going to be cutting through a swath of this, very precious land. That's a highway that's totally unneeded, that apparently won't do anything to really reduce the times that people spend on the 401, which is the main highway between my area and Toronto. But, it's important to have these signs and then replace them weeks later because Doug Ford resized them. Let's see. The giant blue signs are designed to be impossible for drivers to miss. Commuters chugging along the Greater Toronto Area's vast highways networks over the past few months have been confronted with promotional signs touting the construction of Highway 413 and the Bradford Bypass, two signature projects that Doug Ford views as key to helping him win over voters. Not so much flooding would also help win over voters. Let's just see. Like the amount for these signs in particular, when you add it up in the grand scheme of things, is not that much. But when you start taking into account all the places he's wasting money, all the places he's no longer getting money from, like the LCBO, we'll be getting into that in a little bit. Getting rid of registration fees for license and all that sort of stuff. So we're constantly losing money in the coffers. But then there's these little side projects of his where he just likes to spend money. And, instead of spending money on things to help with the floods, the infrastructures, people's actual lives, he's putting it into promotional signage on the highway, which is just totally not needed. And this is where some of the cost gets into. The cost of widespread flood in Toronto could easily surpass $1 billion, according to the Insurance Bureau of Canada. That's the cost of climate change. I'm not going to click on this article because it's from the Star, and I have another article open from the Star that I want to touch on. Well, it's already open, so it should be safe to see. You just have so many articles per month with them that it gets annoying because then you can't see anything more. Overland flooding insurance, which protects against water coming through cracks or windows in basements, is limited and expensive in the GTA as it's not covered by basic policies. So a lot of these people who might lose their basement apartments, lose their, places that they work and stuff of that sort, won't actually then be covered by insurance. So they'll just lose it all because it's not covered by basic policies. And a lot of people can't afford, especially with the cost of renting space in Toronto, can't necessarily afford a more advanced one. But here is a closer picture of that, closer view of that picture I was showing earlier. So as you can see, it's right up to the hood of this van. You never know. The only time you can risk it if you're in this scenario and you see these cars in front of you making it through. But if your car isn't up to snuff and then you get stuck in there, then everyone is stuck behind you as well. There we go. See, I reached the monthly limit because I opened up one other article. One other article. It gives you one article per month. Come on, Toronto Star. The total cost of Tuesday's flash flood in Toronto could easily surpass $1 billion, which is the same as their police budget. So it shouldn't be a problem. If they have that much money for the police budget, surely they have enough money for this. And the government and homeowners will be paying for most of it. According to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, IBC, Tuesday's storm is comparable to the historic 2013 flood in Toronto, which resulted in $1 billion insurance, residential and commercial damage, adjusted for inflation in 2021, and was among the 10 most expensive natural disasters in Canada. And that's all I get to see in my monthly limited of the Toronto Star. So many people say we can't afford to update the infrastructure or to build homes that are more resistant to climate change, build new buildings that are more resistant to climate change. We can't afford it. It's just so much. It's just so much. Not doing it is a lot more, ends up costing a lot more. And again, it's the people with the least who suffer the most, the people who can't afford the insurance that would cover these things, lose everything, lose their livelihood, lose their homes, having to start over from scratch without insurance money. We can't afford to not address climate change now. Like, where's the money? There won't be any money in the future for, covering the cost of all these natural disasters that happen. But on a little bit of a lighter note with this flood that happened, that's Drake's mansion right there. Drake just posted this story of what seems to be him walking around with a broom while his mansion is flooding. And the Serfs saying Drake lost so badly that God is unleashing plagues upon his house. I don't know why. How loud? That's so loud in my ears. I don't know why you would want to post that, and what are you doing with the broom? It's not gonna help much. And that doesn't even look like a home. It looks like a department store, a luxury department store. He can afford it. That's the thing. He can afford it. He can afford to make light of it. He can afford to walk around with it in a broom. But so many people who live paycheck to paycheck, live with poverty, live with disabilities, if this is happening to their home, they can't afford it. They can't afford to replace their stuff. But then there's also this from T. Resident. Wonderful Twitter account to go follow if you're still on the hostile fart sauna. New Doug Ford campaign video just dropped, and yes, that is a dumpster being pushed along in the floodwaters. The only thing it's missing is a flame, but I think all of the flames are just, they're happening south of the border right now. That dumpster fire is just taking so much oxygen from the surrounding areas, we can't even have a dumpster fire right now. That's how bad it is in the United States. There's not enough oxygen up here for actual dumpster fire. And we'll just go back here. So that's what I wanted to cover with that one. Let's check the Sandbox. Oh, welcome everyone who has since popped into the stream. MIDI Doctors. Looney Tunes 9000. MIDI Doctors saying Toronto thing is mad. Yeah, and it's not the first time. I remember it wasn't, they said 2013? Was it that long ago? Because I remember similar types of floods like this happening, I want to say not that long ago, but I am getting older, so it might have been like 2013 that I am thinking about where this happened. And again, all I can think about is the people living in basement apartments in that area and what that would do to them. MIDI Doctor's asking, how unusual is this? I visited Toronto twice, never heard of flooding. It's not common, not like Miami or anything of that sort, but it's not terribly uncommon. To this extent, a little bit more uncommon, but there was like a massive amount of rain that fell in a short period of time and it builds up. And again, with all the concrete and stuff, it just gets funneled because there's nowhere for it to run off properly. You saw the Don River, which was just flooded and went onto the Don Valley Parkway. Because in some areas like Los Angeles and stuff, you see those concrete waterways that the water can go down in these situations, and Toronto doesn't have those. They have the natural Don River to take care of a lot of that, and runs into the lake, but as you can see, it's not effective anymore. Not with the amount of rain and stuff that we're looking at these days. And with all the cuts, and here's the infuriating thing, is I was seeing some people commenting saying, oh, this is because of Olivia Chow and her management of the city. She's been mayor for like, what, not even a year? This isn't on her. Like, how about the 6 mayors previous to her that were all conservative? How about the conservative provincial government that was doing the cutbacks to like the conservation authorities? It's always conservatives love to deflect the blame whenever there's somebody a little bit more left-leaning nearby. But it's like, there's nothing Olivia could have done in her time in office right now that would have prevented that. Nothing. Because these types of structural infrastructure things, it takes decades to get that bad. And it needs, like, that's the thing, we need to start working on it now to prepare for the weather events happening 10 years from now. And we're not doing it because, climate change is so far in the future. No, it's happening now. Climate change is now. Carrie's saying storms have been getting worse around the Great Lakes. I'm not sure if that affects Toronto. Yes, Toronto is right on the lake, shore of Lake Ontario. Gunstroke saying that they hate those monthly limits. Yes. One article. Come on, Toronto Star. Can't I get like 3? Because even if you have some sort of, tool to maybe get rid of the JavaScript that's going on, they've found ways around it so you still can't get past it and you still get blocked, which is annoying. They just don't want me to know. They don't want me to know. Looney Tunes 9000 saying it's from the remnants of Hurricane Beryl. Mm-hmm. It is actually. Yep. Okay, what did I want to get to next? Right, I wanted to get to this next. I I will be talking smack about the Serfs later. They did something recently. They were like calling me out. I was just joking with the letter hack. It's like I need to have a beef with another content creator, and I think I found that beef with the Serfs. We'll get into it in a little bit. But what I want to get into now, because I do not want this to be a 3-hour or a 4-hour or 5-hour live stream, there's a lot happening tonight. For people who are arriving late, there's the RNC convention still happening down south, and a lot of our favorite channels are going to be covering that later on tonight. Starting at 8, I think the Majority Report will be covering it. Then Left Past 10 is having Matt Binder on at 10 p.m. And there's a lot tonight. That's why I started a bit early today, so that I could be done well before then, have my dinner and relax before I, want to get all unrelaxed watching the coverage of what's happening down there. Oh, this is like a very high anxiety time to be involved in politics. This north or south of this particular border. It'd be a lot worse if I was south, no doubt about it. But I don't have anything I can take for my anxiety. The doctors don't like prescribing me certain medications regularly because they might be addictive, but as soon as you say that to me, I will avoid taking them because I'm terrified and paranoid about getting addicted to medications. So it's not like I would overuse them, but doctors are still like, you know what, you should probably just do some counseling instead. And it's like, and how am I supposed to pay for that? Because it's not free in this country. And then for the programs that are funded, you get wait times of like a year for a few sessions that can't deal with my problems, because my problems, a lot of it it's situational. It's the constant stress of living in poverty and not knowing what's happening. And talked a bit about that with Mike Morris earlier today. I had an interview with Green MP Mike Morris. I'll be posting that later this week once I get it all edited and looking pretty. But so I don't have, pharmaceuticals for my anxiety. And I've tried edibles and they don't work for me well, and I don't drink. Like, there's nothing orally I can take to help with my anxiety, and I have yet to find something that can help lower it. So instead, I just go crazy when I'm not on camera. I'm like toning it down right now because my anxiety inside is just like, like going on walks helps, Or there was the book that I've been working on, and I'll touch on the book again at the end of this just to let people know how you can actually help that derby I'm involved with. Like just hyper focusing on something that doesn't have to do with the real world is like the only thing that helps with my anxiety. But then it's just a distraction. It's not really helping. And then I'm not productive during it, which then can add to my anxiety after I'm done with that distraction. Yeah. Marty, I use melatonin every night to eventually get to sleep. And I don't have any medication for my ADHD because, again, I need to see I haven't officially been diagnosed, so I don't have any medication for that. And to try to see somebody who can diagnose me for that costs money, and money I don't have. And terribly long wait lists and all that sort of stuff. But, it would be nice if an edible would work. On the Majority Report, they talk about the CBD that they use. Forget what they call them. But every time I've tried that sort of thing, it has no effect or negligible effect, because the times that I have tried edibles, I just feel a little weird later in the evening, but not outside of my normal mood swings that can happen on an hour-to-hour basis. So I'm still working on something that can just help me in the moment to unwind and just relax. And I found there was one medication that seems to help. So I'll have to push my doctor to give me more tablets of that without them patting me on the head saying, you should go to counseling. And it's like, well, I should be getting a guaranteed livable income, and then maybe I wouldn't be needing this counseling. I'm on ODSP, Marty. Music can help. When I go on my walks, says Carrie Firefly, when I go on my walks, I listen to music. When I'm writing that book that I've been working on and really zone out, I listen to music. But again, those are just very, very temporary distractions. And as soon as I get out of that, sometimes my anxiety is worse because I'm not productive with anything else. Like my dishes don't get done, the laundry doesn't get done, the chores and or little tasks that I was supposed to get to don't get done. And so, yeah. No, trust me, trust me. If there was something that could easily fix it by this point in my life, I would have done it. So I appreciate suggestions, but been there, tried that. Oh. So why don't we get on to the next little bit of news I wanted to cover before I start talking smack about the serfs. So down in the States, there was an incident not too long ago. I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. There was like this attempt on Trump's life, which, the more we hear about what happened, the more bizarre it all sounds. Because I don't doubt at this point there was a shooter. It was on the roof. People saw that, and there were actual bullets, and somebody did die as a result of these bullets. But a lot of people are saying that if Donald Trump was actually hit in the ear with one of these bullets, he wouldn't have an ear anymore. So it was most likely a piece of glass or shrapnel or something. But then the teleprompters around him weren't like there's so much going on. So I'm almost falling back to what I originally believed when I first saw the footage. It's like he just had a little razor in his palm and he did that WWE thing of like, my ear, and slit his ear so that you would see the blood. Because that's what they do in the WWE, and he has a big WWE background, so he would know that technique. Of just like, oh, ow, look, there's blood. Ike must have got hit. Because there's been no medical reports of his injury, so we don't know what actually happened. But, tragic. The person who died, I feel bad for his kid, but wasn't, like, nobody deserves to die in these situations. I want to see people live long enough to grow. Because apparently this person was posting horrid things, like with the footage of what happened in Gaza, just saying, oh, they'll get over it, the Japanese did. Like, that was his last tweet. So not a great person, but I don't think people should die because of these bad opinions. I want them to live long enough to grow and become better people. And that doesn't happen when you have shootings at these political events. Like, that's the thing. I don't want Donald Trump assassinated. I want him to live long enough to see his empire fall, to go to jail, to something, to live long enough to see it just all go away and then die a natural death. One that might take a while. I don't want political violence at all. At all. I also think there's a big difference between jokes and actual threats, stochastic terrorism, because people on the left will often make a joke. Something recently right now with Jack Black and his friend making a joke, and Jack Black, that's all surface level drama. But then there was also the one comedian that held up the severed head of Donald Trump. And people right now are bringing that up. That joke. Was the joke in poor taste? Sure, I don't know. Prop humor. Should that person have been harassed that much? No. supposed to, like, there is a difference between joking and actual stochastic terrorism. And what we see on the right is stochastic terrorism. When they are saying queer people should be rounded up and shot, they're not joking. They mean it. That's what they want. When they constantly tell everyone that queer people are groomers and that they're a threat to your children and you should do anything to stop that threat, they're not joking. They are hoping people will act on this and be violent. And then when we've seen violent attacks towards people on the left, like different types of shootings and like Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, the jokes that the right make at their expense after actual real harm has been done. You know, people have actually died and people are joking about that. Mass murders, you know, violent incidences. And they're making light of it. But then as soon as somebody on the left makes an offhand joke about Trump, not the person who actually was killed, but about Trump, then suddenly it's the worst thing in the world anyone could do. Oh no, political violence, ah. But there's so many examples. And even in my comments in one of them, somebody was saying, oh, well, there's this time the left did this and this and this, which again, it's not comparable. It's just not. Like we say, yes, fascism needs to be defeated. We aren't saying that it should be a bloodbath to accomplish that. Even when we say at all costs, it doesn't mean that we, you know, okay, go out and murder everyone you think is a fascist. That's not what we're saying. Protests, you know, hit the streets, shut down business, you know, don't kill people. And the thing is that when we're speaking on the left, it's assumed that when I say you must fight back and do whatever it takes to stand up against authority, to, you know, make sure your rights are heard, you know, hit the streets. On the left, we more or less take for granted, we know I don't mean violence against people. You know, because I don't want to see violence against people. You know, they're spray painting and stuff like that. I don't care so much when it comes towards some properties. Like if it's somebody's personal home, again, don't touch somebody's personal home. But it's just kind of a given. But then all of a sudden the right wing will latch on to this and be like, oh, but you said at any cost and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, they're being so disingenuous with what we're saying. And if they pay any attention at all, they know we don't mean acts of violence against people. Whereas on the right, they just outright say it over and over and over again. And they implement policies that inflict violence over and over and over again. When people can't get reproductive health because they've shut down all clinics that can provide abortions, that is violence. People die as a result of that. You know, police violence is political violence. I just posted a clip of a live stream I did where I was covering an article from the breach where the police were cracking down on pro-Palestinian protesters, and it absolutely was targeted political violence. Like, it is just, without a doubt, that was political violence being enacted. And you don't hear these same right-wingers saying boo about that. But, oh no, somebody made a off-color joke about Trump maybe being shot in the ear, but we don't know because no official medical records have been, you know, released to the public. Then suddenly it's bad. But we're going to go over some of these things that some of these politicians here in Canada have said. So, let's go here. Alberta Premier, that would be Danielle Smith, calls on progressive politicians to dial down rhetoric after attack on Trump. I've covered her on my channel a lot because she's just horrible, horrible person. Anti-trans policies, anti-people policies, all that sort of stuff. She's just good to seeing people suffer and all that. She is a right winger, true and true. Like literally saying to Tucker Carlson on stage, you need to get this politician I disagree with in your crosshairs. And then she's mad at the left for calling the right fascists when they are. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who once told former Fox News personality Tucker Carlson she wished she would put a federal cabinet minister in his crosshairs, called on progressive politicians. I love how they put that in quotations, because that's actually something I would do, because I would be sarcastic, because we don't really have any progressive politicians. We have like four. One, which was on my show, or I did an interview with earlier today, which will be posted later this week. I had an interview with one of those actual progressive politicians, but most politicians are not progressive. To temper their language Monday after former U.S. President Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt. Speaking to reporters as Premier gathered in Halifax for the annual Council of Federation, Smith said she's concerned about the languages sometimes used to describe Canadian conservatives. Have you looked at the headlines about how conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is described as dangerous? How the leader of the opposition in Alberta has described me as dangerous? When you start using that kind of rhetoric, that ends up creating an elevated risk for all of us. And I think we have to be very mindful that we can have disagreements in politics, but we should stick to the issues. Yeah, Danielle, maybe follow your own advice? Maybe? Huh? That would be a good start. Because it's always, again, it's coming from the right where it's the worst. What is this? Is this? Yeah. So this is a little news clip in a province where fuck Trudeau flags and signs were ubiquitous. One might look a little in the mirror when one gives advice about dialing it down.
The way in which conservative politicians have been characterized is outrageous. And that is, I think, led to the culture that we've seen in the U.S. And I certainly hope that some of the progressive politicians here are careful of their language, because they've been talking about conservative politicians in the same way, and they need to dial it down.
So that's just her saying that. And so here she is scolding the left for calling dangerous politicians dangerous. They are dangerous to people. Their policies will inflict violence on people. They're dangerous. You can say that. And again, as somebody on the left, that doesn't imply violence. It just means we need to make sure that they're not elected into office or they are voted out. Here we go from Press Progress. 7 times Alberta Premier Danielle Smith embraced extreme inflammatory or dangerous rhetoric. Danielle Smith says conservatives are the victims of dangerous rhetoric despite her own history of extreme and inflammatory political rhetoric. Let's just skip down. So, endorsing the Coutts border blockade. Months before becoming Premier of Alberta, Smith supported the convoy occupation of Ottawa and the blockade of the Canada-US border in Coutts, Alberta. The blockade, which called for an end to all COVID restrictions, led to the arrest of 4 heavily armed individuals on charges they were conspiring to murder police. That wasn't a joke. They found weapons. They found the plots. Like, this was something that they actually wanted to do, was commit this violence. But Danielle was supportive of that. 2 weeks after then Premier Jason Kenney asked for the blockade to dial it down, Smith expressed her support for the Coutts blockade during a Western Standard live stream. We want to see it win, Smith said. We want to see it win in Coutts so Jason Kennedy, Scott Moe together become the first premiers to turn it around at the provincial level. This whole phrase of peace, order, and good government, I think, become a shorthand for the federal government can do whatever the heck it wants, and we just have to be peaceful and orderly about it. That's not, in my view, what it should mean. What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, is there a video with this?
All right, Danielle, Coots and Trudeau.
I would love Rob to talk a bit about this because he's the lawyer and I'm not. But this whole phrase of peace, order, and good government, I think it's become a shorthand to the federal government can do whatever the heck it wants, and we just have to be peaceful and orderly about it. And that's not, in my view, what it should mean. The federal government has said they want every federally regulated industry to have vaccine mandates. So that's broadcast media, radio and television broadcast media. It's all of the telecom companies. It's all of the grain elevators. It's the ports. It's the banks. And so, are we going to get to a point where to be able to get a bank account, you're going to have to be vaccinated because you won't be able to walk in the door? I have no idea. But the fact.
Then you probably shouldn't be saying anything because those were all lies, she just said. And people who lie like that tend to be dangerous. That amount of lying, especially when it came to COVID and vaccinations, because a lot of people ended up dying because they listened to people like her and they didn't get vaccinated. That to me would qualify as violence.
This is the line in the sand that's been drawn because the federal government has so much more planned. They have so much more coming. And I think this is the reason why we want to see this win. We want to see it win so that they don't end up rolling out the full plan. And we want to see it win at Coots so that Jason Kenney, Scott Moe together become the first premiers to turn it around at the provincial level so that other premiers will follow.
Yeah, so the blockade that they found people wanted to murder police officers, they should have won. Comparing vaccinated Albertans to Nazis during the 2021 provincial election, Smith apologized for comments she made comparing vaccinated Albertans to Nazi followers on wealth management podcast. I think I remember that too. That's the thing. There's so much stuff that they say that you don't even remember all the violent rhetoric that they've put out there. We have 75% of the public who say not only hit me, but hit me harder and keep me away from those dirty unvax, Smith said. During the same podcast, Smith said she was boycotting Remembrance Day poppies in protest of public health measures, a statement that later drew rebuke from the Royal Canadian Legion. 3, suggesting Alberta's chief medical officer should be sent to jail. In a Western Standard podcast, Smith floated the idea that Alberta's chief medical officer, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, could face up to 2 years in jail for imposing public health orders. Again, not encouraging people to get vaccinated, and then some of those people died. That's actual harm. That's violence. But threatening to harm the people trying to keep these other people safe, she'll do that. So yeah, just suggest the criminal charges. Let's go. 4, telling Tucker Carlson to place Canada's environment minister in his crosshairs. I covered that in a live stream. She said that on stage in front of people. Like a whole audience, cameras rolling. She knew they were rolling. And not only that, they were also talking about replacement theory, the replacement conspiracy that, white people are being replaced up here in Canada and the United States, and other conspiracy theories on stage in front of people. But, it's fine to do that, but saying that she's dangerous, that's crossing a line there. 5, posing for photos with convoy leaders that wanted to oust Canada's elected government. In April 2023, Danielle Smith posed with Freedom Convoy leader James during a fundraiser for UCP MLA Eric. Eric is an original member of the Freedom Convoy and author of the convoy's controversial Memorandum of Understanding that called for replacing Canada's democratically elected government. Although Smith claims she didn't know who Eric? Sure. James was, the premier did not explicitly disavow James or the Freedom Convoy. Now remember, the Freedom Convoy wanted Justin Trudeau out, and some of them were willing to do it by force. They weren't joking. Again, actual violence, actual stochastic terrorism happening. James, for his part, didn't buy Smith's explanation. How can a politician not know who James is in this country? Yeah. 6. Standing with the Take Back Alberta. Smith was silent when David Parker, a close political ally and friend whose wedding she attended, declared war on Alberta's election agency. When Elections Alberta began investigating the finances of Parker's Take Back Alberta, Parker decided to pick a fight in the province's election watchdog. Corruption at Elections Alberta must end, Parker said, referring to his belief that the organization is controlled by political enemies. I have zero obligation to report to them under the law. Actually, he has every obligation to report to them under the law. Let's see. Credits itself for Smith's rights. Okay, let's flirting with right-wing conspiracies. Number 7. During her time as premier office, she has repeatedly pandered to segments of her base of supporters steeped in far-right conspiracies. And we've been over some of them. Cutting ties because the WEF was attempting to control governments. I wonder who. The gender ideology, extreme left of undermining the role of parents, all of that rhetoric. Yeah, so she's telling other people to not call her dangerous because that's, that's dangerous rhetoric, to call her what she is. And the breakdown, a great Twitter account to follow if you want to know more about what's happening in Alberta in particular, also has a thread together. Today, Smith claimed that conservatives have been the target of dangerous rhetoric and that she's never engaged in that sort of thing. Haha. So she, that's the one about putting the environment minister in the crosshairs. Of course, there's also the point in time where she claimed that Justin Trudeau was coming for your speech, completely misrepresenting the actual situation before saying it was dangerous to Canadian democracy. So Danielle Smith had tweeted out, Mr. Justin Trudeau is coming for your speech. Just yesterday, his government indicated they will start censoring misleading political communications on social platforms and private messages. This is very dangerous to Canadian democracy. There she is using the D word. Let's not forget the time she referred to, again, the mischaracterization comments made by the federal justice minister as dangerous. She tweeted, Ottawa must back off from any plans stripping resources away from Albertans, along with Premiers Scott Moe and others. I'm calling on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to denounce and retract the dangerous comments made by the justice minister. Of course, there was always the time she said bravo for them when people wanted to celebrate Coutts' protests, and she referred to the Coutts blockade as a victory of our freedom. Again, people that were found to be conspiring to murder police officers. Maybe she was just speaking as a one-off, though. Nope, she called for the Coutts a win multiple occasions. Hey, there isn't a video of Danielle Smith, current right-hand man, calling the Prime Minister tyrannical and fueling fears he might send the military into Coutts, while Smith nods along, and a current director of Southern offices praise Coutts too. Yeah, again, just more and more. And more. Danielle Smith in UCP, we don't use harmful rhetoric. Progressives need to stop attacking conservatives and victims. Also, UCP, why don't the NDP just rename themselves the Nazis and stop pretending? That's, again, part of her cabinet there. Video clips of Sean comparing the NDP appeasement of the federal Liberals to Chamberlain's appeasement of Hitler and suggesting the NDP rename themselves the National Socialist Party. That's a little bit more dangerous rhetoric than, people on the left just saying that their dangerous rhetoric is dangerous. And then, of course, there's this. If you see any of these right-wing rallies and protests, there's been nooses with Justin Trudeau's. There's always the fuck Trudeau flags that are all over the place because, no, that's not violence. Making him into a piñata and stuff. And we've seen things like this down in the States too with, again, Trump and conservatives crying victim, but you see images, there's like those panels that they put on the back of the truck to show that it's a picture of like Biden tied up in the back of the truck and stuff, and horrible images. Not to mention January 6th, where they actually were building a stockade. They were doing that in hopes of hanging politicians. And then Charlie Angus, who is a NDP MP. Actually, Pierre, there's a need for you to turn down the rhetoric. You recently led a vicious attack on a medical doctor who is now receiving death threats. When I called you out, I received online death threats with gun images. Your words matter. Pierre Poilievre, and this is the Toronto Star article I could open. Pierre Poilievre worries about threats against his family, but says there's no need to tone down political criticism. Reminder, there was a right-wing group that said that his wife needed to be essayed. And he was then cozying up with that group. I don't feel he should have a say in this, because he obviously doesn't understand danger or what potential rhetoric could lead to. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he is concerned about the threats against his family and at one point sought increased security, which they received. Well, you see, that would be nice, because that doctor Charlie was talking about probably couldn't afford that. A lot of people on the left who are targeted by the right, they can't afford personal security to try to keep them safe. And not to mention, he wasn't even paying for this. This was coming out of the government's pocket, but rejected any notion Monday that politicians should tone down criticism of their rivals. Pierre was among Canadian leaders who condemned political violence in the wake of the weekend shooting at Donald Trump rally in Pennsylvania, which injured the former president and left one spectator dead and two critically injured before the gunman was killed by police. We must win our political wars through words, not through violence, Poilievre said. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke to Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, on Sunday by phone and condemned Saturday's appalling assassination attempt, wished Trump well, and expressed condolences to the shooting victims, according to a formal summary from the Prime Minister's office. Trudeau had no public events scheduled Monday. Let's see. We can have politicians who are blind, and I believe this is Poilievre saying this on a radio show. We can have politicians who are behind 4 feet of glass who roll by motorcades, but we never shake hands with real human beings, and then we won't have democracy. I guess there are whack jobs. Oh, he's changing it up a bit. Poilievre loves to use the word wackos. So there are whack jobs out there that could do something. We take all the precautions possible, but I have to talk to people and I'm not going to stop doing that. Well, you see, the thing is that generally speaking, he's not the target. It's again, usually people on the left. Like, there's been actual attacks, public attacks against Justin Trudeau. Somebody throwing rice on him got tackled to the ground and assaulted quite brutally versus somebody who was far more aggressive. But there's been actual attacks on Justin Trudeau multiple times. When the people who are more likely going to be the kind to commit those attacks happen to be on your side, it's very easy to say, you know what, rhetoric doesn't matter. Because my guys here, they're not targeting me, they're targeting the other side. So yeah, I'm fine with this rhetoric. In a way, he's almost encouraging political violence against the left by saying this. Because, again, we know, statistically speaking, it's the right wing that commits the vast majority of this type of violence. In subsequent interview with News Talk 1010, elaborated, I don't worry about my family. I do worry about my family. We do receive a lot. Some of them are threats, some of them are implied threats, and some of them are vitriol that can lead to violence. And a lot of them have been targeted at my family, he said, for security from both Prime Minister through the RCMP and from the House of Commons. And we received that security from both those sources. And again, it's nice that he actually has access to that security. But not too long ago, actually, I should probably look it up, a woman politician had to step down due to the constant threats. I'm going to see if I can find that article. Let's see. There was a woman politician. Oh. This is it. There we go. So senior Alberta NDP legislator member Shannon Phillips to resign seat. And this was just in last month. Shannon Phillips, member of Alberta's opposition NDP and former environment minister, is quitting public life, citing toxic politics and police surveillance. Yeah, what is that about political violence there? Police are political tools, and she was receiving a lot of harassment from police officers. The coercing of political discourse in public life is very problematic, Phillips told a news conference in Lethbridge on Monday, adding that the climate makes it more difficult to attract good political candidates. There's no question that many of these dynamics are worsening. There is also no question that I am well placed to be able to speak about them. Phillips is a three-term member of Lethbridge West, first elected in 2015. She said she plans to resign from the legislature July 1st. Yeah. So lots of threats. She needed extra security. All of this. But where was the outcry about her situation? You know, she couldn't keep up with the security needed to keep her safe. But, you know, it's fine because Pierre Poilievre can keep up with his security. So this rhetoric should be allowed to continue. The Mounties are responsible for protecting the Prime Minister, the Governor General, and visiting heads of state or heads of government. Poilievre, like all MPs and ministers and their families, are also provided with RCMP protective services based on an as-needs basis according to an assessment of threat and the risk that someone might carry out a criminal act against them. You know, maybe that group that he was cozying up with that said his wife needed to be essayed. That calls for that kind of criminal threat assessment, and in many cases, active protection by the police bodyguards have skyrocketed over the years, beginning over the last 4 years, reaching nearly 500 in 2023 for the Prime Minister and nearly 1,500 for MPs and ministers that same year, according to the RCMP. So all of this rhetoric is leading to increase in political violence and targeting, that's for sure. But it's the left saying this rhetoric is dangerous. That's the threat. The official opposition leader, speaking to radio host Alex Pearson, rejected any suggestion that the Trump rally shooting represented a need for political leaders like him to curb their rhetoric. And I've covered him recently, constantly referring to Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau as wackos, calling them insensitive names, mental health names, insane, crazy, things of that sort, referring to safe injection sites as drug dens, which, you know, again, that paints the picture of like, who would go to a drug den, you know? Oh, it's only drug addicts. And he says that, you know, they can't be near schools and stuff like that because they're going to hurt your kids. These drug dens, they're going to hurt your kids, the people that go there. So we can't have those around kids because those drug addicts going to hurt your kids. What does that do? That kind of rhetoric. And that's coming from the potential future Prime Minister of Canada. He says, let's be very clear. My criticisms of the Prime Minister are entirely reasonable and focused on his policy agenda. Sorry, I just said he was calling the Prime Minister wacko. That's nothing to do with his policy agenda. Calling him crazy and insane. That's nothing to do with his policy agenda. We are not going to self-censor ourselves now. We are not going to allow the shooter to shut down our debate. It's not a debate. It's not. Poilievre said his criticisms of Trudeau's government agenda will continue. That is my job, to continue saying insensitive language and incendiary language towards the left, knowing that they're more likely to be targets of this violence. The worst thing that could happen is that we become a country like the dictatorial countries where no one's allowed to criticize the leadership, and we're not going to do that. I don't think we're at risk of that here in Canada. I know I've said some not nice things, never threatening. I don't threaten, but that's bad. Don't threaten politicians. But I've called them plenty of names that I feel are well earned. Responding to those who suggested he should not have stated on Twitter that he was happy. Again, he said that he was happy the suspected shooter was dead. That the would-be Trump gunman had been killed. Poilievre dismissed his critics, saying the shooter killed another human being, tried to assassinate the former president, and injured two others. Do they think he should be alive? Yeah, actually, I do think he should be alive. So you can find out, maybe why he did this. Maybe have him stand his day in court. Yeah, he should be alive to face justice. That's life, and frankly, I don't care, says Poilievre. So he dismisses the fact that this person, the shooter, is dead, instead of, potentially getting answers as to why this happened, if there was anybody else involved, all of that sort of stuff. This person going to court in the justice criminal system, that is irrelevant. He deserved to be executed. That's what Pierre is saying. And he's happy that this person is now dead, instead of potentially getting the help that he needs to. Again, I don't want these people to just die. I want them to become better. I want them to grow, to rehabilitate. That's what I would like to see in the criminal justice system, is restorative justice. But then to be like, that's life, and frankly, I don't care. He doesn't care why the shooter did it or anything. All that he's just happy that this person is dead. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh, who receives RCMP protection for some public events, said Monday it is very important for him to remain accessible to the public during the next election campaign. On a personal note, I would say I don't think any political leader who has been in public spaces when there's tensions has ever ignored that voice in their head that says, hey, what might happen? Could something bad happen here to my team, to my family? I think that's a real thought that goes through people's minds, the NDP leader said. I'm worried about what it means for people. I'm trying to recruit candidates, and sometimes they tell me I'm worried about how polarized politics is right now, and I don't want to get into politics. That's a problem, and it is. Because a lot of the people who could do the most good shy away from it because they don't have the same resources to hire private security, to keep everyone they know safe from a lot of unhinged people hearing unhinged language from the right saying, sometimes flat out saying people on the left deserve to die. Or that some people, like the shooter, they just deserve to die. So what if the shooter didn't actually kill that other person? Does he still deserve to die? What if the shooter just went there but was stopped before he shot anything? Does he still deserve to die at that point? what gives Pierre Poilievre the right to determine when it's acceptable to execute people? A person for the public safety minister, Dominic LeBlanc, said Monday that the minister had participated in a brief text message exchange with Poilievre where the conservative leader was told to relay any concerns he had about him or his family to LeBlanc, who would then raise the matter with the RCMP. Let's just see. It's usually right when I get to like this part of the article where I'm like, I don't know if I need to read all of this just to see that it's like, it's basically the end. So yeah, we don't need to read the end of this. And this again, Pierre Poilievre, I can't wait to defend the CBC and sell off headquarters for housing, which he would never do unless he's going to be the landlord. He constantly accuses the CBC of lying, of giving misinformation and things of that sort, which it's bad. It's bad to do that. Stepping outside my usual wheelhouse to say I'm not down with defunding a pillar of national identity like this. Yeah, lots of people lose their jobs if the CBC is defunded, and I have my criticisms of the CBC, but I also believe that there should be a government funded news outlet, because that way they can actually get to the stories a lot of independent people can't get to. But Pierre is fine posting things like this because he paints the CBC as being dangerous, sending out misinformation, of being biased. So what happens when employees at the CBC then get targeted by right-wing people that takes his words to heart? They can't afford security. And a lot of journalists get targeted all the time from, again, primarily people on the right. You see it, again, like libs of TikTok, how they'll just target random people on the left and say, oh, these people are groomers and they're a danger. And then those people would get death threats, hunted down, doxxed. You see, there's this thing going on that I've seen this. So there's this thing called DARVO. Beware of abusers using DARVO. And so the D stands for denies responsibility, A attacks you, R reverses roles of victim, you, and the offender, the abuser. It sounds a lot like what's happening right now. That we're basically in an abusive relationship. The two sides are so polarized, so toxic, that we're in an abusive relationship right now, the left and the right. So this just it's from Forbes. It has a little bit more information on what the DARVO strategy is. And this is used by abusers. Now, I'll go over these and let's see how familiar this sounds. So 1, deny. By engaging in calculated active denial, the perpetrator refuses to acknowledge their actions or consequences thereof. They may admittedly negate any responsibility for their behavior, often employing tactics of minimization or outright dismissal by denying the validity of the victim's claims or impact of their actions. The perpetrator effectively undermines the victim's experiences and gaslights them into questioning their own reality. So how many of these right-wingers have done and said horrific things, but as soon as they're called out, they'll be like, it's just a joke, or I didn't say that. Sometimes they just flat out deny saying things that are on tape and provable. And then they also dismiss, people on the left when we try to call it out and saying, that's wrong, that's bad. Then they'll be like, oh, you're just a whiny snowflake. You need to thicken up. You don't have thick enough skin. It's just words. It's just a joke. You can handle that. Is that sounding familiar? A lot? That it'd be like that? That the right denies their engagement in this violent rhetoric and violent actions? Because there have been jokes on the left, but there have been actions coming from the right. Ones that, generally speaking, harm in unalive people. But oh no, someone said a joke on the left. 2. Attack. Following the denial stage, the perpetrator will attempt to assault the victim's character and credibility. This attack can take various forms, from subtle undermining remarks to overt accusations and blame shifting. By casting doubt on the victim's integrity, motivation, or mental state, the perpetrator seeks to discredit their claims and deflect attention away from their own misconduct. Through targeted attacks, the perpetrator further erodes the victim's confidence and reinforces their sense of powerlessness. So, yeah. So Danielle Smith was now attacking the left, calling the left, saying that the left is the ones that are being dangerous, that they're the ones that are at fault here. Is that sounding familiar? Sounding familiar to me. That, quite often they do attack the credibility, saying, oh, quite often they'll be like, well, this person's a groomer, so they deserve this. Hear that a lot, especially when it comes to queer folk. They'll say that queer folks are groomers. That's attacking victims. Like, as soon as you see people who are victims of right-wingers, quite often those victims are attacked and vilified as well. Like, look at all the black men that are killed by police. What happens to their character after the fact, after they were unalived by the police? Their characters are attacked. They're made to look like the bad people in the situation. We see that all the time. Or, even if the attacker usually is a right-winger, they'll look for any way to connect them to left ideals and then attack that, like, oh, the shooter was trans, when there's no evidence of that. Again, attacking the image, the identities of people on the left. Even when they had nothing to do with the violence, they still end up getting attacked by the right. So reverse victim and offender. In the final stage, the perpetrator skillfully manipulates the narrative to cast themselves as the victim and the actual victim as the offender. This tactic involves the strategic inversion of roles, where the perpetrator portrays themselves as unfairly treated or harmed, while painting the victim as the instigator or aggressor. Through this inversion of reality, the perpetrator not only absolves themselves of guilt, but also further victimizes their target, leaving them feeling isolated and discredited. Again, does that sound familiar? Like, again, I don't think somebody should have targeted Trump, but at the exact time that he was targeted, he was pointing to a chart saying people who cross the border are illegal immigrants and are dangerous. But he's the victim. He's called for violence over and over. And there are a litany of examples of Donald Trump calling for violence. One time at the rally, oh, you should punch him in the face. I'll pay for your legal fees if you do. I can shoot a person in Mill Ave and get away with it. Over and over and over, he has been the offender. But now suddenly he's the victim. And people who are, on the left saying it's dangerous, it's fascism, they're the aggressors now. They're the evil people. Somebody with an off-color joke, they're the evil people. They're the problem. People on the left are the problem. They're the aggressors. Not the people on the right who have actually committed these offenses. No. And we even see that how they will latch on to calling people on the left PDF files. Again, I'm trying to keep my language YouTube friendly. But then totally ignore the actual PDF files on their side and even defend them and justify it. And suddenly, well, if they get married when she's only 14, but it's marriage, then it should be fine, and we should be fighting for lowering marriage ages and stuff. Like, they are doing this, but then we'll call queer folks groomers when they're the actual PDF files, and we see that over and over again. They accuse the drag queens, but then there's this news, breaking news, and this breaking news of a right-winger, a church person, a police officer, a politician, right-wing politician. All these right-wingers are the actual perpetrators of this violence. So here it says, so some ways to avoid this type of tactics. Standing your ground begins with recognizing Darvo. So frequent encounters with this method of individualizing so this is more for an individual as opposed to like things. So things to look out for. Signs of denial. Be on the lookout for an aggressor's attempt to deny responsibility for their actions, to minimize your feelings, or to gaslight you. To counter it, present them with concrete evidence of their wrongdoing to deflect their attempts at disorientating your reality. Signs of the attack. Look out for deflection tactics and attempts at character assassination. In the face of such insults or attack, do your best to maintain composure. Make it clear that you will not tolerate them discrediting your feelings, and redirect the conversation back to the issue at hand. And then I think this is more for an individual as opposed to these movements. Signs of reverse victim offending. Beware of aggressors' attempt to play the victim and blame shift. If they do, remember to trust your own perceptions and refuse to engage with any behaviors that undermine your sense of truth. So that is Darvo. Denies responsibility, attacks you, reverses roles of victim and offender. That sounds pretty accurate as to the political atmosphere we're in right now, which is scary. Because, you know, I've often thought of the way the government treats the population as an abusive relationship, like financially abusive, emotionally abusive, just the way the government treats people. But we also have this coming from right and left politics. It's just become so polarized that you're seeing this behavior en masse. This behavior that abusers use, these tactics abusers use, is being used en masse by the right. And I don't think there's programs out there on how to defend that en masse, because the instant you try to, they start cherry picking and saying, well, this individual thing and this individual thing and this individual thing, as opposed to looking at the big picture and the overall instances of actions and rhetoric and what it's leading to. Well, let's check the Sandbox. Mindy Doctors, you got drama. Oh yes, super serious drama with the Serfs. Totally serious. It'll be a little bit of fun to lighten us up with. Mindy Doctor saying it was a bullet. Again, I want to see the medical records on that. There were bullets absolutely fired. Hunger Games 1989. I hope you're feeling better from your migraine. Also saying Danielle Smith doesn't look very smart and someone I would trust, let alone trust her to give medical advice. Yeah, she was extreme anti-vaxxer. That's part of the reason, like part of the way she got to become premier of the province was just how extreme she got with that rhetoric during a time of COVID. And Alberta is a conservative province to begin with. And just extreme anti-vaxxer, and she'll never take accountability for the amount of people who died because they followed her advice and they didn't get themselves vaccinated, or they didn't take COVID seriously, or they didn't take any precautions. And she'll never take responsibility for that. Let's see. Andrew K, locker room talk. Yeah, that's another thing that they do to justify male violence, male sexual violence in particular, misogynistic violence. they just dismiss it. It's nothing more than locker room talk. You guys can't take a joke. It's not real. It's not serious. When it actually it's quite serious. But again, a joke from somebody on the left with no actual and, no implications of anyone following through on any sort of violent acts, that's not okay. And whenever you insult the right, even milquetoast insult the right, they get so offended and they play the victim so much. How dare you call me what I am? You said that I'm a fascist. And then they'll try to do the same to me by calling me a communist. And I'm like, I don't necessarily identify, but I don't exactly consider that an insult. I don't necessarily consider myself a communist, but it's not an insult to me. But, if you feel like being called a fascist is an insult, then you might need to do some self-reflection as to why you're being called a fascist. Thank you, Looney Tunes, for boosting my artwork there. Andrew K., he said Second Amendment people should take care of Hillary. Yeah. There's just, again, there's so many examples people have just forgotten about. Like, it wasn't until I was just saying it that I remember him saying, that person needs to be punched in the face. I'll pay your legal bills. There's just, again, there's so many instances of Donald Trump calling for direct violence and stochastic terrorism. Gaia, what happened to the Serfs? It's not real drama. It's not, but it's just, it's fun. It's fun beef drama. I'm totally calling them out on something. Which leads into a story that I want to cover. So it's not random. It leads into, the stuff that I want to cover about Doug Ford. But it's just, I caught a clip of Lance saying some stuff, and I'm like, I'm feeling a little like he's live streaming me. So yeah, nothing serious, of course. Lance is a sweetheart, but let me get this ready. There we go. And that is it kind of queued up where I want? I think it is. Yeah. So I watch the Serfs. I don't necessarily get to catch their live streams, but I do watch their clips, and especially when he covers Canadian issues, because it's like, well, I want to learn more about Canadian issues. Canada politics are good, and it also helps to watch when they clip Canadian stories, because they don't do as well as when they clip other stories. And so I'm like, oh, he's covering things that I'm going to cover. Yeah, okay. Maybe takes a little bit of the punch out of what I was going to say, but you know what? I'm not going to knock it, because I think these things need attention given to them. I am all for Lance covering the exact same Canadian stories that I cover. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like there's a little bit of an imbalance going on here. I'm feeling like he kind of did like a sub live stream of me, because it's not Twitter, so it wasn't a subtweet, as they say. I'm like, the nerve. Let's go over it. So we have this here. Doug Ford pushes more beer, but less healthcare in Canada. Yeah, that's a thing. I know. I've been covering it a lot. But and this first part actually wasn't to do with that. It was to do with like Pierre Poilievre worried that our military is too woke. And that was a story I was thinking of covering, but now I don't need to, because Lance did such a brilliant job of covering it. I don't need to cover that story anymore. But there's this story about Doug Ford that I still wanted to cover, because, it's Ontario and I'm an Ontarian, and it's kind of like what I do on my channel. So let's think if we go there.
There's a handful of lefty
Oh,
Toronto
no,
content
let's
my to people who take summer school for what's available at the time. So a lot of the encampments have said they're going to return once the regular academic season does as well. So that's
I've covered a lot of stories about encampments, Canadian university encampments on my channel. And if they do come back in the fall, I'm going to be covering them. I even had an interview with a local encampment here at the university in my city. So, you know, I'm doing my part as a Canadian, eh?
supposed to take place, but for now, a lot of them are getting taken down. And if all of this makes you sad, and don't worry, this is the end of my coverage of Canada, then you can take solace in cheap beer. No, it's not even cheap. More beer, less money for I mean, there's no other way to put this. It sucks because, you know what, Toronto, there is a handful of lefty Toronto content creators, and there's a handful of lefty big accounts that are based out of that region. Y'all should be reporting on this and talking about it. It has a
Excuse me, what? You're telling me I should be covering this story in Ontario, are you? You're telling me? First of all, he just mentions Toronto. You know, Ontario is more than an envelope for Toronto. There are areas outside of Toronto in this province. I happen to be outside that, and I might not be one of the bigger content creators, but I am the largest content creator in my region for political analysis. So I've got some clout here, and I'm doing this, and you know what? Like, Ontario is a big province. You know, it's not just Toronto. Like, Lance, have you even been to Ontario? Like, I've been to BC accidentally, but still, have you even been to Ontario? Do you know what Ontario looks like? Because it's far bigger than Toronto. Like, I know you're over there on the West Coast and you're getting a lot of that ocean breeze, and it can make you a little bit foggy and stuff, and that's probably to do with a lot of the marijuana smoking that happens in that province. BC is well known for being high all the time. And it's like, yeah, sure, it might be relaxing over there. You might have a little bit more of a progressive government than we have over here, you know. But you know what? Ontario has good things too. Like, you have the Rockies, but we have drumlins, which are hills that are like teardrop shaped. They're really cool. We have those. And sure, you might have the ocean over there, but we have the Great Lakes. You don't have a great ocean. We have the Great Lakes over here in Ontario. You just have an ocean. Ooh, an ocean that covers, like, you know, 75% of the world. That's nothing. When we have the Great Lakes, one of them is even named after Ontario. You don't live by the, you know, BC Ocean, the Great BC Ocean. No, you don't get that. But we have the Great Lake of Ontario. And there's also Lake Superior and Erie and the other ones. Like, we have Great Lakes here. You just have an ocean. That's what you have. You don't know anything about Ontario. You don't know what I do here. You don't know all the effort that I put into this. And you might be like, do you know what? They should be covering this. Yeah, I think we should be. I have been.
a lot of issues. Other way to put this, it sucks because, you know what, Toronto, there is a handful of lefty Toronto content creators, and there's a handful of lefty big accounts that are based out of that region. Y'all should be reporting on this and talking about it. It has a lot of issues that are, you know, more beer, less
YouTube
money.
backing up on us.
I mean, there's no other way to put this. It sucks because, you know what, Toronto, there is a handful of lefty Toronto content creators, and there's a handful of
Toronto. No, it's Toronto. I'll say Toronto. I'll put the second T in there.
Big accounts that are based out of that region. Y'all should be reporting on this and talking about it. It has a lot of issues that are, you know, capable of doing some numbers. First off, like this, it's Doug Ford, so, you know, you can right away.
What? I can cover Doug Ford and get numbers on my videos? What? Have you seen the numbers I get on my videos? So I'm going to follow Lance's advice. And this video, when I clip it, it's going to get numbers because he knows that he's the real YouTuber. I'm not. No. I can't get numbers. Like, yeah, cover Doug Ford. You're guaranteed numbers. That's how it works. That's how it works. Absolutely. You just throw Doug Ford up on the screen and you get so many numbers. You just, your channel just pops off. That's how it works. That's how it works.
Doing some numbers first off, like this it's Doug Ford, so you can right away, it's the brother of crack smoking mayor, ex crack smoking mayor of Toronto.
You see, that's how little, Lance, you know about Ontario, that you still have to refer to Rob Ford, the former crack smoking mayor of Toronto, because that's all you think of when you think of Ontario. You don't know what's happening here. And why would I go after one of his relatives who has long ago passed away from, health conditions and stuff, and it's tragic, when Doug Ford has living family members that are very worth going after, like his daughter. This is real. So, new. In his latest grift, Doug Ford brought his daughter's Kai Kai cookies, we'll get into this in just a moment, to Halifax as a thank you gift for Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, and says that Kyla Ford sends these cookies to all the premiers. And so we'll just...
It's Premier Houston's gift here.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, okay, full disclosure, okay. It's my daughter's cookie company, and she sends it out to the premiers. Kai Kai cookies, best cookies ever in the whole world. But that's the gift to Premier Houston and his lovely wife. So we'll be eating well. Thank you. Which way do we go? Around here. Thanks.
Yeah, so he's promoting his daughter's business here. Now, what some of you may not know, but if you live in Ontario, you would know this, is that she opened up this business of hers, these Kai Kai cookies. Now, you might not be able to see it, but on some of these areas, if you look up in the corner, like right here, there's an odd spelling of cookie going on. It's odd. It's a little odd. And if we scroll down here, you might even see like an email address. If we go right down, oh, here we go, info@Kai Kai Cookies. And now, let's see if I can make that a lot bigger for you to see. Look at that. Kai Cookies isn't spelt with a K. No. You see, when she opened her business while Doug Ford was in office, instead of doing the fatherly thing, like maybe saying, you know what, dear, I love you and I support you and I think this is a good thing, but having the acronym for your business being KK Cookies, and cookies with a K, looks a little off. She had KK cookies, cookies with a K. Kai Kai cookies. That's and Doug Ford is now promoting. They got a lot of pushback from that. Shocking. And Kyla was like, oh, it's Kai Kai. It's just my nickname. It's my nickname. That's all it is. And then I thought it would be a little cutesy to then spell the cookies with a K. So shouldn't she be like, cookie calories don't count? I think she spelled these wrong then. Those should both be K's as well. And so they did a rebranding thing. So it's no longer Kai Kai cookies, but it's Kai Kai's Cookies and Sweet Treats. Cookies spelt with a C. But you can still see it all over the web page where it was KKK cookies. Why go after his crack smoking brother who's passed away years ago when you have this? When you have this, that it's happening now. that Doug Ford was never like aware enough while in office to take his daughter aside and be like, that looks bad. It looks a little bad there.
Conservative part of Ford Nation, and they've done a really good job at basically gutting as many social safety nets as they can after privatizing as many industries as they can, and they finally just got to booze. And most of the research that I've done on this has shown that it's going to take about $2.5 billion away from money that was going into health.
Do you know where else you can find that information? If you watch my channel. I've been covering the story from the beginning. But oh no, I'm Lance, and I'm just sitting here all chill, never looking at the camera, and like, look at my dog over there in the corner. Oh, isn't Chico so cute? Yeah, he's so cute. Now, I'm in BC, so I'm just going to like step outside and get high from all the marijuana smoke around me. And, you know, life is great. You know, got the ocean over there. Whichever side, you know, just life is, you know, Ontario. Who needs to know Ontario? It's not like half the country lives in Ontario or anything. You know, what's the big thing about Ontario? No, I'm just going to sit here and never look at the camera and pretend, you know, I'm just looking this way. And it's like, no, if only there was like content creators over in like that Toronto province that could cover this, because it would totally get numbers. Like this is like some solid information here that people could be getting. Yeah, just, you know, if only there were content creators over lefty content creators over in Ontario, Toronto. You know, it's not Toronto, Ontario. It's Ontario, Toronto. You know, if only there was somebody over there covering, because this is like a big story. It'll give you numbers. Give you big numbers if you just, you know, if you just do what I say. I see you, Lance. No, I felt that. I felt it. In my soul. I felt it. Yeah. If only somebody was covering this, you know, over in the province of Toronto. Cause yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good. Huh? I hear you. Oh. So why don't we go over some of the shenanigans that Doug Ford has recently pulled off with the LCBO? So the LCBO is the liquor stores here in Ontario, and they were provincially run, and that meant a lot of money would go to the province through them, because, you know, the profits would go into the coffers and all that sort of stuff. Well, you see, Doug Ford has done this thing that conservatives do called privatizing. And he sold off a whole bunch of them, and a lot of people are going to lose good paying jobs because of this. And a lot of people are losing their security, and the province is going to be losing a ton of money. So while they still can and make a point, the union for the LCBO has gone on strike. And Doug Ford is very concerned this summer that because of this strike, you won't be able to get drunk. No. Make this summer an Ontario-made summer. Our new interactive map shows thousands of convenient options where you can still buy beer, wine, spirits, and other drinks across the province. Check out a local brewery or winery for some fantastic Ontario-made products near you, and check back for more options at convenience stores, grocery stores, big box stores. We'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. Starting later this summer. And he has this little ad here. Now, you see, the date of this is July 8th. You know, they only went on strike like a few days before that. And he already has an interactive map for where you can buy your booze that fast. It's almost like he was thinking ahead of time, you know, that he was being so horrible that they could potentially go on strike. So why not, you know, spend money on making this interactive map now so that it's ready to go as soon as they go on strike, so that people can get their booze and not be too inconvenienced. You know, it's funny how fast that came out, considering there's still no map for where people can find an open ER. Because especially in northern areas, the emergency rooms, tend to get closed because they don't have enough staff, which means if you're in a crisis, you're SOL. And even the ERs in my area, going to one, you can be there for a day trying to get seen. You know, family doctors, a map for family doctors would be really good. Because, let's see, where is it? Where is it? Look at this. Look at this. Number of Ontarians without family doctors reaches 2.5 million, college says. Now, you see, the thing is that number doesn't include people who have a family doctor that they don't want to keep for various reasons. Sometimes it's because they live in a different city because they moved, and instead of trying to get a new doctor, they stuck with their old doctor, so they have to travel over an hour to go see their family doctor. Or maybe their family doctor is someone who they don't feel comfortable with because maybe their doctor isn't friendly towards queer folks or people with mental health issues. You get that a lot with family doctors who have no understanding of mental health issues, and that becomes a problem. It does. You know, so this 2.5 million doesn't include all of the other people who want a new family doctor but can't get one and are forced to stay with the doctors they don't like or don't get much access to. So this is a big undercount. And you see, Lance would know that if he knew anything about this province. Like, can he even name one city outside of Toronto? Because I can name 2 cities outside of Victoria, because there's Vancouver and Burnaby. That's a city in BC. So let's watch this little ad. And do you know what, what's so funny about these ads? They're tax paid for. So not only are we losing billions of dollars with him moving alcohol into convenience stores a year early, he's also then using taxpayer money for these ads.
It's summertime in Ontario. That means more time outside with family and friends at a neighborhood barbecue or a camping trip.
Or maybe his mega, cottage that he just made. He made like a mega cottage beside his old cottage, and he's always at the cottage. So, he's saying family and camping trip, but really what he means is like when he goes to his cottage, especially during crises, which he tends to go up to his cottage a lot.
Even though LCBO workers are on strike, there's still plenty of options for you to buy beer, wine, cider, coolers, and
he didn't toast those buns. How can you have hamburgers from a barbecue without toasting the buns? That is sacrilege right there. You can't not toast the buns. You need toasty buns when you're having barbecue hamburgers.
even spirits, including products made right here in Ontario.
Funny thing about the spirits is that there's going to be so many more of those in this province after the speed limit on the 401 gets increased to 110 kilometers and all those ERs are closed and there's a lot more drunk people. There's going to be so much spirits here in Ontario.
We've created this handy new map that shows what stores are open and what they sell. Say you want to buy some local Ontario craft beer. Just zoom in on where you are.
It's just so cute though, actually. If we go back. Look at how he types. You can tell he's used to sitting in front of a computer and just a little do 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 do.
You want to buy some local Ontario craft beer. Just zoom in on where you are, click the filter for beer, and look at all the fantastic options that pop up. And look at all those yellow dots which show Ontario-made products. Click on one and you'll see the stores.
So this interactive map is available for people who want alcohol. Not everyone in this province needs a map that will help them find alcohol. Not everyone drinks. Age restrictions, people who just generally speaking don't drink. Everyone needs access to a family doctor in emergency rooms. You know, there's no emergency where you need to get to the liquor store. It might be like, oh, shucks darn, we're out of alcohol for the party. But that's a little different than I'm having a heart attack and there's no ER open. You know, so it would be nice if those maps existed for things that actually matter, as opposed to some people who might be bummed if they're short a few coolers for their party.
Name and address as well as what they sell. And keep in mind, LCBO convenience outlets are still open with plenty of local products that you can find by clicking the right filter here. Folks, it's just that simple. I hope you'll all give it a try and take the opportunity to support Ontario.
Yes, people in Ontario, go out and get drunk so you'll vote for me again, because that's pretty much the only thing that seems to work for him. Every election, there's always something about beer and alcohol.
Producers and their fantastic Ontario-made products this summer. Let's make it an Ontario-made summer. And remember, in just a few months,
So in just a few months, convenience and grocery stores will have alcohol. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Just all that convenient alcohol there. About that, shelves at grocery stores empty as LCBO strike shows no sign of ending. Yeah, this looks almost communist there with the lack of product and shelves. What is this, a socialist province? Can't even get alcohol?
convenience stores and grocery stores across the province will be able to sell a whole range of drinks. So check back on this map for more options as they appear. Enjoy, and remember to drink responsibly.
Yeah, because that's going to be your only outlet in the despair of this province, you know. It's very important that you have alcohol on hand, so when you gash your hand open and you can't go to the emergency to get stitches, you can pour some alcohol on it to make sure that there's no infection. So we just, ooh, look, we just scroll in. Oh, this would be like, if these were family doctors, so helpful, so helpful. And then we can do this and this. Ah, yeah. Convenience outlets. Ooh, that's very convenient. Look at how many there. That's so convenient that I would just have to travel an hour to get to this convenient location. Oh, there's one for spirits. Might become a spirit on the way there with no ERs on the way that would be open. And what's this? There's a fair bit of ciders, but those are in grocery stores. Like wine is already in grocery stores, the same with some ciders. And there are local breweries, which I do encourage people to go to because you can find some fantastic beers that way. I went to one once. I was waiting for something and it was really cold outside, but I felt like I should buy something while I was in there. And so they had this oatmeal coffee beer. And I'm like, I don't drink, but I need this. I need to know what this is. And the woman said, you know, I can give you a sample. I'm like, no, please, no sample. If you do, I won't buy it. And so I bought a bottle of this coffee oatmeal beer. Could taste the coffee. You could taste the oatmeal. You could taste the beer. Somehow they were all three different sensations, which was just really odd. And again, just in their amazing account to follow on Twitter, amazing how not a single media outlet asked the government when this website was built. Clearly, it was all planned before the LCBO strike. Because here's CTV News, Toronto, saying the Ontario government has launched a new interactive map of retail booze outlets across the province as LCBO workers remain on strike. Yes, so go be a scab and get your alcohol somewhere else as opposed to supporting union members. And so here is Colin DeMello from Global News. New, the Ford government is taking its battle with the LCBO union to the TV airwaves. And that's where we get back to who's funding these ads? Right. It's taxpayers. LCBO CEO George, I almost saw Soros there. George Soros, no. George Soleras voiced a simple-looking commercial and asked the union to return to the bargaining table.
I am George Soleas. President
Soleas. George Soleas, not George Soros. George Soleas.
and CEO of the LCBO. I want to thank you for your patience during OPSU's strike. The strike did not need to happen. We have come to the table with many employee-focused offers. But OPSU walked away over where ready-to-drink beverages can be sold. Let's end this strike. OPSU, it's time to respond to the offer and join us at the table. We are all waiting.
No, we're not.
I am George.
And then the union, and Colin follows it up by saying the union today claimed that the Ford government is not negotiating in good faith after the province decided to speed up the introduction of ready-to-drink beverages in grocery stores. Those drinks could be on sale at 450 grocery stores as early as next week. Now, keep in mind, he was spending approximately $1 billion to get this alcohol into convenience stores and big box stores a year early. That's all, just a year early. And yet Toronto was just hit with $1 billion disaster. Funny where that money goes. And this is from OPSU. Today, Ford Nation announced accelerated expansion of alcohol sales at grocery stores. Ford has forced this strike to push his alcohol everywhere agenda to dismantle the LCBO while handing billions in public revenues over to the big box billionaires. Ford got the help of the Westin. Now, for those of you who watch my channel, so not Lance, you would know that the Westins own Loblaws and Shoppers Drug Mart and have been making a mint with the skyrocketing grocery prices. Well, now, funny how this happens, they're going to be making a lot of money with alcohol being introduced into their stores. It's not the people who benefit from this, because now those profits are just going to corporate billionaires as opposed to the province to solve things like $1 billion flood in Toronto. So Ford got the help of the Weston family members like Claudia Hepburn, who sits on the LCBO board of directors. The Westons are worth an estimated $10.8 billion. Every single person reading this is infinitely closer in circumstance to any given LCBO worker on the picket line near you. Big box billionaires have Ford's ear, expediting his rush to put booze everywhere. LCBO is not just another retailer, it's a treasured public asset, improving the lives of Ontarians by putting $2.5 billion back in our public services. We're ready to head back to the bargaining table as soon as Ford and the LCBO are prepared to bargain in good faith for a future that will protect good jobs and protect public revenues, as well as create more stable and permanent jobs. It's a future we wish for everyone. It's a future we wish for you. Supporting the LCBO workers reinforces that vision of a province where we protect and invest in good jobs and public services like hospitals and childcare, not schemes to make big box billionaires richer. Because, again, there's so many, as Lance was suggesting, there are so many layers to this. Because it's not just the fact that we have people, like the money isn't going to be going back into public services, but so many people will be losing their jobs. Now, Doug once said that nobody would be laid off when he was premier of this province, which has already proven to be wrong on so many levels. But it's so hard to get a job these days that's stable and reliable. And he's taking that away from people by doing this. And then when they need to go to an ER and a lot of their extra coverages are no longer covered because they don't have a work insurance program and there's no ER open, well, then they're just SOL. That should be the name of Doug Ford's new liquor, just SOL. And there's also this article here from Press Progress. Doug Ford alcohol privatization plan will cost Ontario taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Now it's forcing LCBO workers to go on strike. I won't read over all of this because it's a Press Progress article, so it's long. I will try to remember to link it in the description box below so that you can read it. But if we go down, I think there were some points here that I just wanted to get to. My mouse is squeaky. Yeah, so the Doug Ford government is saying the government claims its plan to privatize alcohol retail sales is really about delivering choice and convenience to shoppers. There's no reason why Ontario consumers shouldn't enjoy the same convenient shopping experience as Canadians in every other province when buying some wine for their holiday party or a case of beer or seltzers on their way to the cottage. Doug Ford was quoted in the press release announcing the plan. Yeah, you see, the thing is that they were still fully accessible. Like, they have delivery services, for crying out loud. Like, it's what? So you have to travel 15 minutes as opposed to 5 minutes? Let's see. Those industry partners include big business lobby groups like Retail Council of Canada, whose members include Loblaw, Metro, Sobeys, Walmart, and Costco, as well as the Convenience Industry Council of Canada, whose members include Loblaws, Circle K, and several oil and gas companies that operate convenience stores, all of whom stand to generate significant profits as a result of Ford's plan to privatize alcohol sales. And so do you know who else suffers when this happens? It's those little breweries I was just telling you about. You know, the little craft breweries in this area, the little independent shops. When suddenly all of this alcohol is available in the big box stores and they can undersell it than what these craft breweries would be, a lot of them go out of business. It's the same reason like why we don't have many small grocery stores anymore, like local grocery stores, is because the big box stores came in here and pushed them all out of business. And this doesn't even lead to cheaper alcohol. It's going to be expensive alcohol. Let's see. There was another point in here. So what labor experts are saying, labor experts agree the strike was provoked by the Ford government's decision to privatize alcohol sales in Ontario. The union is using the collective bargaining process to resist privatization of the LCBO. So it's this union that is fighting for the people of this province, not Doug Ford, this union. Because the privatization of the LCBO means so much money will not be going back into public services. Instead, Doug Ford will be more than happy to use taxpayer money to make ads on why it's good that such a small percent of people who regularly need alcohol so much they can't travel more than 15 minutes should be able to get it. Like, that's the thing that Doug Ford has done over and over again, is he's prioritized things that don't matter to people's well-being. It's just a little convenience here or there. And meanwhile, the things that matter never get acknowledged. And you would know that if you watch my channel, because probably 50% of the stories I cover are about Doug Ford. They don't generally do numbers. Let's see. What else did I want to get to with this? Oh, this is a fun little ad. So this ad is from the union. So new OPSU is on the air with commercial amid LCBO strike. It features a supposed grocery store CEO who is clearly meant to be Galen Weston. The government also cut out with a fun ad featuring the LCBO CEO urging unions to return to talks. So this is funded by the union.
Hello, pores. I'm Callum. I may be rich, but I'm drowning in profits. That's why I want a big slice of the LCBO. Sure, they invest $2.5 billion in your community. That's basically nothing to me. Just like you, I struggle to have enough yachts. Just like you, I'm sad inside. My mansion! I worked really hard to be born into money. Don't I deserve more of yours? I mean, what's a billionaire got to do to get some extra zeros around here? Stop funding public services. Start funding me. No, I get it. I just don't see why we need schools and hospitals. Pick one. Who's going to both? Hello, pores.
Let's see. Then the other area that is going to be struggling because of this, LCBO strike latest. Tourism industry struggling as convenience store applications pour in. Tensions between the Ford government and union representing more than 9,000 LCBO workers continue to rise as the provincial liquor store strike enters its 12th day. Government-run LCBO stores across Ontario have been closed since July 5th when unionized workers... So, that ad, this ad here from Doug Ford, this was released July 8th.
It's
so,
summertime.
In 3 days, he cut together this ad and got the interactive web page going. Is that what you're saying? In 3 days, he did all of that? To allow corner stores, blah, blah, blah. Bargaining has not resumed since the strike began as both sides raised their rhetoric. Ontario Tourism Industry and Association says it fears profits during peak season could be ruined. Again, it's just a lot of people not looking at bigger pictures when it comes to a lot of this stuff. How many different layers of people suffer when the government does things that force unions to have to go on strike. And quite literally, this union is striking for the well-being of the people in this province, because access to alcohol isn't what the well-being that people need. Access to emergency rooms and family doctors is. And it was the profits from the LCBO that was going to help with that. And that's now not going to be available. And instead, it's going to be going to billionaires. So my message to Lance, pretend I'm a premier and you're the prime minister and maybe stick to your lane. Council of Federation wrote to Trudeau asking him to refrain from unilateral actions. And this is another story. I'm not going to get into detail of it now because I've covered this type of thing over and over again. A lot of the premiers are mad that the federal government is stepping around them to get things done because the premiers have been blocking any progress whatsoever and leaving Justin Trudeau with no choice. And I don't like a lot of what Justin Trudeau does. Anyone who watches my channel knows. But, you know, I'm glad when he sidesteps the premiers in order to work with the cities to get more affordable housing, to work on environmental issues and all that sort of stuff. And then, like the bullies they are, they cry as soon as they don't get their way. You need to stick to your lane, Justin Trudeau. How dare you do anything for the people? That's my beef with Lance. Let's check the Sandbox. Oh, I need to get these out of my ear holes. Ow. I need better headphones. Because I tried last time. I asked you guys how the audio sounded if I didn't have these in, and all of you were like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then I put it in my editing program. It's not fine. It's not horrible, but it's not good. So I'll have to use the earphones still. Let's check the Sandbox. I have a squeaky mouse. Oh. Looney Tunes 9000 breaking news. Joe Biden tests positive for COVID. Let's see. Couldn't have happened at a better time. So U.S. President Joe Biden tests positive for COVID, White House says. President Joe Biden under fire from fellow Democrats to drop his re-election. You know what? Maybe this is just Joe Biden's way of getting out of this. You know, be like, oh, shucks darn, I got COVID. I can't be the candidate anymore. Somebody else will have to step up, but totally not my fault. You know, if I didn't have COVID, I would totally be the candidate. Uh-huh. Maybe that's what they're going for. So apparently on a trip to Las Vegas, White House Press Secretary Jean-Pierre announced the positive test for the 81-year-old Democrat after the president. So he is vaccinated and boosted and experienced mild symptoms, Jean-Pierre said. Minutes after the announcement, the president motorcade was on the move, and on and on and on. There's not going to be too much information about this right now, but here's hoping that maybe this is just their way of getting Joe Biden out of the race without making it look like it's Joe Biden getting himself out of the race. And it'll be like, got COVID, what can I do? Shucks darn, can't go out, can't do anything, can't. Or it's just his excuse as to why he can't be in front of the camera anymore, so we don't see how badly he's deteriorating. Ah, gosh, I hate when I think of more than one options. So it could be his way of getting out of the campaign, or it could be his way out of campaigning. One can hope for one. OmniTube, welcome. Hello. By the way, I was just catching up with what I missed. Looney Tunes also, breaking news. Huge protest going on in Bangladesh. 6 people are dead. VP tests negative for COVID. Are you like my news ticker, Looney Tunes 9000? Is that what you're doing right now? You just want to be my little news ticker at the bottom of here? Let people know what the breaking news is? Hello, Grand Theft Autobot. You didn't get a notification I was on? YouTube is totally shadow banning me. Oh, welcome Raiders from the Serfs, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. OmniTube, I'm curious as to how you ended up in BC by accident. I was on a road trip in Alberta. Well, I have family in Alberta, but I live in Ontario. And when I was 17, my mom gifted me with going on a road trip with a friend to go see my family out west because I was estranged from most of them. And so I was on this road trip with my friend, and we went to Alberta down through the States, but then we came back and circled around, and we came back to Ontario through the prairies and stuff like that, which is just, that's a very boring road trip to go through the prairies. It's as flat as they say it is. But, you know, I got to go to like Drumheller and the Tyrone Museum, which, I love dinosaurs and stuff. And I got to see the Rocky Mountains, and we did some camping at Banff and stuff. And oh my God, I love Banff so much. And while we were in the mountains, we wanted to do some sightseeing, and we're like, oh, here's this natural spring pool being advertised. And so we kind of went on detour to go see this natural spring pool thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, welcome to BC. You're in BC now. Wow, you weren't planning on it, but you're now in BC. So we weren't planning on being in BC. We just accidentally ended up in there. And we went to this magical spring, and it was really a letdown. It was just a concrete pool. It wasn't all that interesting. So we went on this detour out of the Rockies in Alberta just to be underwhelmed. But it was a fun road trip. Lake Louise. Oh, Lake Louise is so beautiful. Yeah, that's a place where I would love to be able to go visit more often, as in more than once in my life. Is that. And then coming back through the prairies and stuff like that. Making a stop in Algonquin Park. Algonquin Park is like my second favorite place, so long as it's a clear night, because even when we were out in the prairies, even when we were in the mountains, you don't see the stars the same way you do when, or at least in the areas that I was in, when you're in Algonquin Park, because there's something about the way that the trees and the lakes and the combinations of it absorbs the surrounding light. And so I went to space camp when I was like 14, 15. And so the first night there, we're indoors, and then at night they do this team building exercise where they blindfold everyone, and you have to hold the person in front of you as they lead you outside. And they do this because of all us city folk here who won't know what we're looking at, because then they get us into the middle of the field and they say, okay, take off your blindfold. And you look up and it's like, there's a cloud that stretches from that side to that side. The cloud is glowing. There's a glowing cloud. Oh my God, that's the Milky Way. Unbelievable amount of stars. Just to actually see this field and strip of stars go all the way across the sky and that be the Milky Way. And oh, love that so much. And of course, the week that I was there in August was during the Perseid meteorite shower. So got to do some stargazing of the Milky Way during the meteorite shower, which was just amazing. Anyway, that's how I accidentally ended up in BC. Probably not as interesting as some people would think. But it was fun at the time at 17, and just driving through the Rockies is nerve-wracking. Oh my God. It's so nerve-wracking because you're on these narrow roads that are carved into the mountains, and they're very, swervy and stuff like that. And it's like you have to be careful with the brakes because you don't want to overheat the brakes because of how much you're braking. And then you see these little areas, these ledges, built-in ledges, so that if your brakes give out, you can go and slam into these ledges. And you're just looking up and you're seeing these sheer rock cliffs, and you're just like, please don't let there be a rock slide right now. It is crazy driving through those mountains, but oh my God, do I ever love them. So that's the story about that. And for all the new people that are showing up late to the stream, because I was piggybacking onto the Serfs time there because I wanted to do an early live stream so that I could be done before now. I only wanted this to be a couple hour long live stream, and it's already 2.5 hours. I've been talking a lot about a book I've been writing, and it's for this author derby. It's a derby, and so there was 50 book covers, all with made up titles and covers and author names, and then you select the ones you like, and then they're doled out to people, and then you write a story based on the cover you get that gets tossed out to you. And so I've entered it this year. I had a friend do it last year, and so I can't tell you what my fake author name is, the book cover, anything about the book. I can't tell you anything about it until the end of this derby. And so once the derby is over, I can tell you guys about the book, and I can't wait. But a way that you can kind of participate and help is, so this is the Inkfort Press. This is the organization that does this annually. But they're going to need beta and ARC readers for the derby. So I will try to remember to link this in the description box. And so you can sign up for the newsletter. So if you just like reading and you want to support maybe some, inspiring authors, because all sorts of people, and this is American originated, all sorts of people from, Canada and the US sign up for this to take part in this derby. And so people who are just kind of curious about maybe writing, want to experiment or try something new, do this. And so what you can do is you can be a derby beta reader and a derby ARC reader. And so when we get into the beta phase, that's our drafts are done. Now we're sending it to beta readers to give us feedback on, they think this is missing, that should be added, this didn't make sense, all that sort of stuff. And you give the authors feedback so that they can fix it up. So I can't tell you anything about my book, but if you just go and start reading a whole bunch of different books to help out, you might not read mine, but you're still helping. You're still helping the other authors. You might end up reading mine and then be like, wow, I remember reading this during the beta after the full version gets out. And so if it's something like, if you like reading and you want to read like people who are maybe experimenting with writing and stuff and support them, this would be a great way to do it. So the beta readers is basically like, here's the first draft, here's how you improve. But then the ARC readers are for the people who are OCD, you know, be like, this should be a comma. You didn't close off these quotations. That's not capitalized there. You use the word O-U-R instead of A-R-E and all that sort of stuff. So I'll remember to put this in the description box when this is done. And so after this derby, because I've been talking a lot about this book, as in I'm writing one, but again, I can't tell you guys anything about it yet, and it's driving me freaking crazy. And some of you are probably thinking that I'm making all of this up, that it's not a real thing at this point. But it's not going to be till like the end of October before I can finally tell you what this book is that I'm writing. But this is the organization here. So it is a legit real thing that I am participating in. And it doesn't cost anything. It's, you know, just a way to inspire people to become writers and create craft and art and literature, fiction and stuff. So, you know, you can go and check out their webpage. There's authors who started this derby, this Inkfort Press. So you can go and check out the authors who started this, get the newsletter. But again, I'll try to remember to link this below so that you could potentially help out. And again, even if you're not helping me out, you'd still be helping people in the competition out, and that would all be great. So that's all. I think that was all. That was all. I think I wanted to cover. Was there anything else? Right. Reminder or to let people know who weren't here at the beginning. Earlier today, I interviewed Green MP Mike Morris to talk about the Canada Disability Benefit, or lack thereof. Haha. And so I'm working on, I just need to edit that video together. And so I'll be premiering it probably Friday around 5, 4, something around there. I'm busy later in the evening, so I have to do it earlier than later, which means I'm probably going to be overlapping with the Serfs again. So I'm looking forward to getting that done. That's the second time this politician has been on my channel. The only one brave enough. The only other politician I recall having on my channel is actually an American politician. So I'm looking forward to getting that done. And tonight, you can check out Left Past 10 with the Letter Hack and a bunch of other people. Matt Binder will be on it, and that starts at 10. But also, there's going to be a whole bunch of live coverage from the RNC. Majority Report in particular. I'll probably end up going there after I get home because I'm going out later on, which again is part of the reason why I'm doing this a little bit earlier. So if there's no more kind of questions and stuff in the sandbox, and so frustrating earlier today too, because I did the interview and then afterwards I did the intro outro and I ad-libbed it and it was amazing. I'm like, wow, I had all the emotional notes, got everything that I wanted to say into this little intro and the outro, and it was perfect and my mic was fucking muted. I'm like, how does this still happen to me? So I did the second one. Not as good as the first one, but good enough. Anyway, I do have a cat here. Are you going to come here? Are you going to come here? Yeah, I have a kitty cat right here. Not as fancy as Lance's Chico camera, but I got this guy here, Lanier. There we go. Abernathy, my other cat, has started to do the really most adorable thing in the world. Well, it's adorable, weird, creepy. I don't know. After I take a shower, he comes in the shower and he starts rubbing up on my legs and licking my legs, which is weird. The rubbing up right after the shower is kind of cute, but then it's all of a sudden it's like, you taste good now. And this one here is Lanier with his little goatee. His little goatee. His little goatee. But I'll put this back up. If you can. My cat Frodo, he's 17. he might even be almost 18 now. He has health issues, so he's on medication, daily medication, and it helps. He eats and he plays with his brothers. I get to snuggle with him at night, and this cat means the world to me. So any help covering his vet bills is greatly appreciated. You can do that with the PayPal link in the description box below, or if you're Canadian, you can send an e-transfer to SandeeLovas@gmail.com. I also have all of these. One of the best ways to help my channel is to become a patron. So that way I'm not reliant on YouTube ad revenue. And then if YouTube decides to demonetize a video because of a 10-second clip, which they do, I'm not going to lose much of my almost nothing that I make from them. So yeah, a more reliable way is becoming a patron. Also, you can support me by checking out my art and buying my art. I'm still looking to have more than one customer. I'm still on these platforms, but primarily the hostile fart sauna, formerly known as Twitter. So all of that, and I have an Amazon wish list in the description box below to, if you have like enough for just a one-time thing and you want to help me out, buy things for my studio, buy things for my art, for my cats, or just to make me happy, because some things on there are just things I'm going to need eventually, and it's one less thing I then have to pick up at the grocery store, which every little bit helps. Thank you to everyone who's come out. Thank you to all you wonderful mods for keeping the sandbox clean of turds. And I think that is it. And I don't know, maybe I'll clip that little segment of Lance and be like totally starting beef with him. Okay, and just checking to make sure that I haven't missed anything. With that, I want to eat, then I have to go out, and then I'll be back watching more politics to totally stress out. I imagine there's going to be a lot to cover tonight, especially now with the news about Biden. I'm hoping that is just his way of being like, to gracefully step out. You know, oh, I've got COVID now. Now I can't be the candidate. Oh no, shucks darn. Versus, well, now I just can't campaign and be in front of camera, so you can't see how much I deteriorate. Anyway. Grand Theft Autobot. I think I'll refer to Twitter as the shitstorm front. I get your reference there. Stormfront, shitstorm front. Get it? I get it, because it is full of a lot of Nazis, but don't call them Nazis because, you know, rhetoric. Ooh. Anyway, thank you, and I will do this. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.